So I'd like to call the December 17, 2019 meeting of the East Long Meadow Planning Board to order. So those in attendance are John Torsha, George Kingston, myself, Russell Denver, and Tide Richards. So I'd like to, before we do the approval of the minutes, so we're required under Mass General Law to ask if anyone in the audience is recording the meeting, and if so, please state your name. Hearing none, we are being recorded for video and audio on LCAT. So I'd like to just do the approval of the minutes of November 19th, 2019. So I have a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second to approve?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, no nays. First order of business. Go ahead.
SPRW 2019-43. Sorry, Chairman. 4-Run-3 Athletic Shoes. Request by applicant for site plan review waiver for a retail business selling athletic shoes at 78 Center Square. Assessor's parcel ID 26-4-0, an existing structure of 1.9 plus or minus acres in a business zoning district. The applicant is Timothy Murphy, 7 Hemlock Circle, Wilbraham, Mass.
Mr. Murphy here?
Yes.
Come on up. I have to tell you, outstanding name. Just a great name.
Okay, you can
You can sit.
You can sit in front.
Yeah. Fairly casual. So, tell us a little bit about the business.
So running store, so we're gonna sell running shoes, apparel, accessories. Do training groups, so 5K, 10K, half marathon. We have a race management company as well, so we time a lot of races in town and in the area. So we'll house that out of the business as well.
What are your anticipated hours of operation?
So Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday 10 to 6, and Sunday 12 to 5.
Do you anticipate doing running club meetings and those type of
Yes,
things?
yep.
Okay.
So those will occur a couple times a week at the store, usually at 6 o'clock.
Okay. And then you'll be closed at 7 and traffic will pretty much move off.
Correct.
There.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we close at 7.
Okay. And you feel confident with the amount of parking that's currently in Center Square to be able to cover all of it?
Yeah, in fact, the group has met there already for the last couple of weeks on Tuesdays, and we just started a Wednesday group at 6 o'clock, and yeah, no issues at all.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would disagree with that. How many people do you have at these events?
It varies. I mean, I guess the Tuesday group has probably been around 35 to 40 people. The Wednesday group just started last week, and the weather was kind of crappy, so I think we saw same thing, probably 35 to 40. It can be a little more than that. I mean, we could probably see 50 or so people.
That's a lot of cars. I was down there last Monday and Tuesday, and had something at the library at 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And people were circling the parking lot looking for parking. That's also the time that the Center Square Grill is starting their dinner service.
There, yeah.
So it looked pretty congested to me. I'm concerned because the parking for that site was based on it being retail, not on it having groups of up to 50 people there.
Yep.
And I would like to see a site plan with a review of the parking formula for Center Square, because that particular, that parking that was assigned to that building was for retail, and they would have 4 or 5 people at a time maybe in the store. It was quite congested when I was there.
Are these meetings frequent affairs, bi-weekly, weekly, or?
The running groups particularly?
Running groups,
Depends on the group, so usually one weeknight and a weekday morning. So like the group that's meeting now is a Tuesday, I think a Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and then Saturday morning at 8 or 9. So, and Saturday morning, the parking lot's empty. We do utilize some of the back parking lot too, so the group actually does a warm-up on the other side of Health Tracks, that kind of empty lot that's back there.
Okay.
And so they've been utilizing some of that parking as well back there.
So is that something you could actually just put into communication
We can.
potentially have them
Yeah, if you feel there's congestion.
congregate there so that it avoids the congestion the rest of the.
Sure.
the shopping
Yeah, I think some
center.
folks have also parked over, I think the bank might close before the group starts, so I think some folks have utilized the bank parking lot.
Yeah, so that bank.
as well.
You know that
That
bank
front
is
lot,
closing.
the bank is closed.
Yeah.
The Webster Bank.
The Webster, and they're just using the other people's bank on the, I guess, the end of where Bentley's is. That one there.
Pulling up a map here.
Technology.
Yeah, because that parking back there, I've never seen a car back there.
So
Yeah, actually-
I belong to Health Tracks.
Yeah.
And so there is overflow parking there. Probably 2 nights a week, you might see some cars in the outer
backside,
lot, not
yeah.
many. I would say there's probably an additional 40 spots back there.
It's a pretty big lot.
Yeah, maybe even more. It's just not utilized very much.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, it's kind of where the continuation of the rail trail or the bike path
Right.
No, no,
would
no.
be, yeah.
Geez, you're already on the map. You ain't improved it yet. How'd that happen?
Do you have other
Yeah,
locations?
but look at all
or
those-
is
No,
look at
it-
that parking right there, that's never used.
Right,
Ever.
that's my point. That's it. And what do you suspect there, how many lots are there?
Oh, I can tell
Or
you
how many
real quick.
Spaces?
I count spaces every day.
How many? 60?
60? You don't have to come.
You know, I know
Oh, yeah,
we're
yeah.
we're trying to really kind of encourage the retail redevelopment.
Oh, you got
in there.
55 right here
We
alone.
want to make sure that there's.
Yeah, you've got,
Understood.
just like Connie pointed out, you've got close to 100 spaces there. You've got 55 here, you've got 22, you've got another 21, another 26.
Are these all in the back there?
Yeah, these are all behind the office building,
Yeah.
right up against the rail trail.
Yep.
If you could encourage your people to use that parking as opposed to right in front of the building.
Sure.
Where, because again, I'm concerned about the impact on Center Square Grill.
Yeah.
People pull in and the parking lot looks full and they just pull out.
Honestly, quite honestly, right around that time anyways, there's not a whole lot of parking in the front, so I think automatically folks have been kind of going to the backside
Okay.
to where the entrance to the, if you, yeah, I don't know, is it, it's not White Street, it's the one next to Walgreens, what's that street next to Walgreens? It runs, and there's some professional buildings right there.
Oh, yeah.
I know
So if you run
exactly
down,
what you're talking about,
if you
yeah.
run down that way, right by the professional building in that lot by Health Checks and then into the back, a lot of folks have been going there. It's just easier to park. and
Yeah, so,
quicker to
so,
find a
so
spot.
so we're not talking about the 30 spaces behind the office building. We're talking about the
That farther
55
parking lot.
spaces right over there by the rail trail.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to say, instead of encourage people, I'd like to have him request your meeting people
Sure.
to park there specifically because of the reasons we've just voiced here. Because, I mean, we're kind of bending a little bit here on what this really is intended for, but
Right.
since it's available and you're willing to work with it,
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Hearing no other questions, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion
To.
to approve.
Okay.
I'd like to add contingent upon when you have group meetings that they park in a specific area, this specific area.
Sure.
I mean, we can work with you on it, but I mean, just to make sure there's no way in the world we're gonna fill up all those parking spaces out front
Okay.
for the retail, and take away from the other retailers.
Sure.
So do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All set.
Is that?
Thank you.
Thank
We'll give you
you.
a call and let you know when your decision is ready.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
SPRW 2019-44 Home Office Request by applicant for site plan review waiver for a home office at 241 Pease Road, Assessor's Parcel ID 43-21-0 on 1.6 plus or minus acres in a residential AA zoning district. The applicant is Pollyanna Borello, 241 Pease Road, East Long Meadow, Mass.
Is the petitioner here? So we'll delay this. Next item.
SPRW 2019-45 Home Office Request by applicant for site plan review waiver for a home office for a graphic design business at 61 Lombard Avenue, Assessor's Parcel ID 2C 37-276 and .19 plus or minus acres in a residential C zoning district. The applicant is Albert Trangese,
Easy.
61 Lombard Ave, East Long Meadow, Mass.
Mr. Trangese here? Hi.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good, thank you. Same thing, tell us a little bit about the business, what you have in mind?
Just been very fortunate, this kind of fell in my lap. It's a simple, done online, motorcycle, ATV, different type of graphics that are in a specific cutout that I have to purchase, and then I just email them to the companies and I get paid.
Okay.
Sounds good.
It's my kind of business.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate, like I said, it
Any
fell
board-
into my lap.
Any board members have any questions, the petitioner?
So there's no cars coming to the site?
Nope, everything's just me doing the work, email.
No commercial vehicles?
No commercial vehicles, no mail, nothing at all.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
you.
Call, let you know when the decision's ready, okey-doke?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Continued public hearing?
Yes.
Case site 2019-12 rooftop and ground-mounted solar system. Request by applicant for site plan review for an installation of a 5 megawatt rooftop and mounted solar system at 443 Shaker Road, Assessor's Parcel ID 19-12-A, 20-1-1, -0 and 20-2-0 on a site totaling 57.41 plus or minus acres in industrial garden zoning district. The applicant is Joseph Hamill, in care of DG Massachusetts Solar LLC, 700 University Boulevard, A1A/JB, Juno Beach, Florida. This is continued from November 19th.
Hi, come on forward. So Connie, my memory, if it serves me correctly, we were just waiting for a couple of documents from them.
Yes, we were waiting for comments from the Department of Public Works,
Yep.
which we received. And I believe the fire chief weighed in also.
Yep, so he gave his approval as long as we have the 3 to 4 times of mowing per year. And that was from November 5th. And then Tom Christensen approved the amendment, so we had one sheet and then the stormwater checklist.
Yep.
And that was today, so.
So before I open it up for a public hearing, so I had the opportunity to go and probably illegally go onto your property and take a look at, pull out the plans and take a look at it. I thought it was really well laid out. Thought it would be a good addition to Cardamundi. So, I think it was-
The one other thing we did was a parking analysis. The array that's going in the parking lot takes away 82 spaces. The total provided right now is 584 spaces. So that brings us down to 502. And then based on its use as a manufacturing or industrial use, the required spaces based on their current staffing is 322 and a half spaces. So we're, yeah.
So before I open to the public, do any members of the board have any questions of the petitioner?
What happens if Cardamundi ramps up their production and they hire more employees and we get beyond the 502 parking spaces required?
So right now, there's still 180 roughly spaces that aren't being used. So even if they ramp up,
Do you know what their capacity would be for employees?
I don't know for sure. I know that their analysis was based off of their current tenants as well, and I believe they're all full. And so essentially, they've encountered a full building, other than potentially ramping up during a busy time of the year.
And they're really seasonal, cyclical.
Yeah, I'm really thinking, right, I mean, during the Christmas time, and they ramp up and have more employees, we hate to have them have an issue. And also, they have tenants in there, and we might have to deny them in the future, when they come in for a site plan waiver for a new tenant, that might require more parking than what's currently being used, and it's important that Calamundo knows that.
Yeah, and I think they're the ones that gave us the number based off of their two largest shifts, because that's how the industrial, or the manufacturing or industrial is used. So I think they were looking at the past 2 years of their largest shifts.
And it would be really their, I won't say their problem, but it's their problem if a tenant gets denied, because they don't have.
They're gonna have to figure something out, because it is gonna impact them if there's not enough parking for capacity.
So this is a continuation of the public hearing, so I open to the public. Anyone have any comments on this specific item? Please step up or stand up and give us your comments. Okay, hearing none. I'll bring it back to the board before I close the public hearing. Hearing none, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit,
I'll second that.
not special permit, the site plan, sorry.
I'll second that.
So we have motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. All set?
Thank you.
Okay, case site 2009-11 ground-mounted solar facility, request by applicant for the installation of a 4-megawatt ground-mounted solar facility at rear Pease Road, assessors parcel ID 33-1-0, located in a 21.26 plus or minus acre site in a residential AA zoning district. The applicant is Steve Breuer, PLH LLC, 222320. South 9th Street, Suite 1600, Minneapolis, Minnesota, continued from November 19th.
Just before I ask the petitioner to come forward, can I just take a random poll of the number of people in the audience who might be here about this specific issue? Okay, great. Okay. All right. I'd like to ask our town council just to join us, if you could. And petitioners, please step forward. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Denver. Good evening.
Good evening.
You only have to look outside and hear the applicant's name and address, and Steve is in Minnesota and was not able to get here today, unfortunately. Couldn't get here last night either because of the weather, so...
Does he want to continue?
No, he does not want to continue. He'll gamble with me, but he sends his regrets. He couldn't be here, but he made every effort to try and be here.
So my recollection is the last time we met, that the planning board agreed that all of us would review the materials and that we would deliver to you as the petitioner the questions that we had that we wanted answered. We'd give you the opportunity to answer the questions at our next meeting, at which time hopefully we would be able to take a vote. So I will start delivering the questions that I have so that we can give them to the public.
If I may, there were a couple of other matters that I think you asked about, and one was the consultation with town council regarding the frontage.
And I was going to allow Mr. Maynard to
Okay.
give us his opinion on that.
And then the other was for us to follow up with the fire department, which you have a
Yep.
report from those. So that were my notes,
Yep.
to
Okay.
be complete.
So then, while we're at it, Mr. Maynard, one of the issues was the issue of frontage in a residential zone with respect to this project. So,
And I think I have advised Mr. Martin and in-house counsel, Mr. Malone for PLH, my opinion, which I offered to the chair, and Mr. Denver asked that I report to all of you as well. The principal basis for a frontage requirement, of course, is the health and safety of town residents. In this case, two parcels are commonly owned by the same same owner to adjacent parcels with frontage on a roadway, a public way in Connecticut. The East Long Meadow Fire Chief has rendered his decision that he is comfortable and satisfied with access through the Connecticut public way. In addition, particularly because of the common ownership of the two adjoining parcels, and particularly because there has been a representation made by the applicant to me that they would be willing to commit to a covenant that each parcel would be used only jointly by a common owner. I don't think that the frontage requirement can be legitimately used as a barrier to any approval of the proposed site plan.
So I'll start with,
I just have a question with what you said.
Yes.
The fire department said it was okay to cross state line to go use the access in Connecticut. Commercial vehicles, and I don't know if a fire truck falls underneath that or not, sometimes are subject to state boundaries. Do we know for sure that our fire trucks are not subject to that?
I think, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the fire chief also indicated that he would be negotiating a specific agreement with the authorities in Connecticut to deal with, I think, with that very issue.
All right, that's great. Just as long as in the future, the state of Connecticut doesn't come back and say, hey, you guys can't drive your fire trucks over here.
Correct.
Okay.
He did say, I've been in touch with the Summers Fire Department chief. We both agree that any incident at the site would initially be a dual agency response. Lead agency would be determined by the exact location of the incident, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure our trucks can go to Connecticut.
They go there now, on
Do they?
mutual aid.
Yeah, mutual aid.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
Sure.
so obviously this is a very unusual circumstance. So the questions I have might be more particular than normal, given the circumstances we find themselves in. But I guess the first question is, would each ground-mounted solar panel be considered a building? And how many buildings and building types can be on each residential property? I'll give you this copy, Mr. Martin, when I'm done.
Thank you.
Secondly, they reference electrical signage will be provided with final electrical plans. And for a layperson, I don't know what electrical signage means and how it might differ from other signage. Under the site plan application narrative, page 2, solar facility, it's indicated the solar facility will be enclosed by a 7-foot high chain link fence. At the initial hearing, the petitioner said the fence at the bottom will have a 2-foot gap to allow for wildlife. Which is it? Is it 7 feet tall? Is it 2 feet plus 7 feet? How did you choose the 7-foot height, and then how did they decide the 2-foot clearance? Is there standards in place for this to do that? I'm going to skip question 4 because we answered the question about fire trucks. So under one of the requested waivers is annual reporting, and this was new to me. So I guess I would ask Connie and our town council, does the town have in force any existing annual reporting for projects? If so, what projects have it, and have they been complying? The other question I have is buffer strip requirement for plantings to be staggered in a 20-foot buffer area, and the petitioner requests that the requirement be waived because abutting parcels are owned by Eversource as utility property and are not likely to ever be used for residential properties. So I guess the question is, do you have some written assurance from Eversource that the property will never be developed? And then I have just two other questions about, would it be appropriate to have the stormwater report reviewed by a third party? And have we done that in the past? Is it proper to have petitioner's decommissioning plan reviewed by a third party? And the reason I raised that issue with this versus the project we just listened to with Cartamundi is, number one, Cartamundi is in a zone that we as a town authorized for solar array. This is not a zone that the town voted to allow solar arrays in. So I do find that to be a difference maker. And then, because I want to make this perfect, so under 5.0 decommissioning preparation, it notes, this document and the proposed decommissioning schedule shall be provided by the removal contractor to the town of Spencer and the utility. We're obviously not the town of Spencer, so I would, because we want to make this perfect, I'd like to make sure that the narrative and things be changed so that it, specifically reflects the town of East Long Meadow. So those are my questions. I don't know if other board members might have specific
The only
questions.
addition I had to what you already put down is, you asked for the public utility abutter to state that there will always be a utility. My take on that was gonna be, if they ever changed, then the buffer would be required.
Thank you.
Sure.
George?
I guess, based on council's comments, I would like to see the proposed, what was it, the covenant, okay, that actually in place before, just as we would with the subdivision. You want the covenants in place before you approve the subdivision. We'd want to see that, so that, other than that, I don't have any additional questions at this time. You've been very thorough in covering all my issues.
John?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't have any additional questions at this time.
Would one of the covenants be dealing with the decommission of this? Because was my other concern. If someday solar is not what it is today and people decide not to go with solar anymore and it all goes away, I wouldn't want to see a vacant solar farm just sitting there till the end of time. I'd like to see it removed and converted back to open space again.
In a residential district versus that industrial, light industrial. Yeah. That's the difference I had on that, so. So I would like to also,
Okay, I'm sorry, should I?
Sure.
I mean, should I start with your questions and then?
No, these are questions we are
Okay.
anticipating that you bring answers to us at the next meeting.
If I may, before you start, question that came up on annual reporting, zoning bylaws, section 7516-2 requires annual reporting for solar farms and to certify compliance with the requirements of the bylaw and the approved site plan. So that's 7.5.16.2. Just so I get that out, so we know what we're talking about in annual reporting.
Good, thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, all of these waivers are indicated within our bylaw.
Right.
So what they're asking for is a waiver from our current zoning bylaw. And
I was wondering if we had other reporting requirements for other projects besides solar. I guess that was my question.
I'm not able to answer that. I would have to ask the
Yeah.
Department of Public Works. Typically, they would be the one, and
Yeah.
I do know that they have reporting regulations.
Yeah, because I'm wondering whether it goes to the scale of the project. The larger the project, the report, they might want, the annual reporting requirement.
Well, for example, any type of retention, detention, a stormwater mitigation system, that requires an operation and maintenance schedule, and there are reporting guidelines, or reporting stipulations incorporated within that operations and maintenance schedule. So it's not unusual to ask for something like this, and to ask for a waiver is nice, but truly, I didn't write this bylaw, but I don't think it would have been contained within this bylaw without either looking at what has been a standard of practice for other infrastructure, and I would encourage the planning board to look at what the current zoning bylaw states and note that while these waivers have been requested, you certainly don't have to honor the request.
Okay.
Okay.
So I would like to just make sure that we get into the record two specific emails. So one is from a Thomas Maloney. Is that how you say
Mal-
it?
Malone.
Malone.
M-E-L-O-N-E.
So to our town council, the day after our last meeting that we met. So I'm going to give this to the town planner to enter into the record, because I believe it is a public document. But I would just like to add maybe a small snippet from it. The next surprising aspect was the board saying they had not received comments from the Public Works Department, and the board needed those to move forward. If the board and any other department hasn't provided comments by Friday, we'll have no choice but to ask the court to schedule a hearing as soon as possible and require the planning board chair and the Public Works head to be there as witnesses. Just love that, love that. So, and there was a wonderful response by our town council. So, just because I wanted to see who I was dealing with, so I looked up Mr. Malone, and Mr. Malone is on the Board of Advisors for the NYU School of Law, Institute of Public Integrity, whose mission is they are a nonpartisan think tank dedicated to improving the quality of governmental decision-making. So I guess his idea of decision-making, of good decision-making, is just pushing things through. So for the record, thank you. And you can include that, that's the mission statement. So, before we open to the public,
Well, I'll say, Mr. Malone is a very capable, smart person. He's
don't doubt it.
quite philanthropic and does a lot of work in the areas you've described. He also is a big believer in he's providing of alternative energy. He's very worried about global warming. He has been working on this project for quite some time. You must know and have experienced people get frustrated with delays. And we just got the DPW comments a few days ago, and we've been waiting. It's been continued at least once, if not twice, waiting for the DPW. So I don't think it's quite fair to cast aspersions on him and say we're pushing it through, but frustrated at not receiving it. He's up against a time deadline under these programs to have some progress by the end of December. So I think I think a lot of people could understand his frustration, and it should not be read in a negative light that he is looking to get this project addressed.
okay, so this is a continuation.
So if I may, we've addressed the fire chief thing, and I didn't hear any further comments on that.
Yep.
We've addressed, I believe, the lot frontage issue, so I didn't hear any comments on that. I am fairly comfortable, and I can work with Attorney Maynard, but a solar panel is not a building, it's a piece of equipment. It is not a structure, and it does not count in any type of, multiple buildings on a site. And done quite a few of these now, looked in this, so if I can work with Mr. Maynard to supply you with that answer, but I'm comfortable telling you that it does not count as a structure. As for the fence, it's usually something that each community has come to a comfort level with. Some towns don't want fences, but they have to have them. I mean, you have a requirement with all the electrical that you have to have a fence. Some want only a 6-inch clearance for critters, some want 2-foot clearance. So the issue would be, something that when the vote is taken, what the board is comfortable with.
Okay.
He's used this, it's a 7-foot fence with a 2-foot clearance.
Okay.
And other projects, probably Spencer, which was cut and pasted to that degree, and I'll get him to correct that. So I think that's the issue. Annual reporting, Connie cited it. I don't know what the annual report would be after it is built and up and running, other than there's obviously ongoing requirements, like, to maintain if there was a stormwater basin or something like that, but that would be directly done with the department. So I haven't seen annual reporting on a solar project, but I'm not saying, we asked for a waiver really because we have never seen it before and we don't know what it meant, but I'm happy to see if that is something. As for the decommissioning, that's the purpose of a decommissioning plan, is the bond that they have proposed, or something of value. It is designed so that if and when solar does, become passé, something new comes in or is not economically feasible, the owner at the time would have an obligation to decommission it, take it away. In response to that, to give the town assurance that if they walked away, that the town would have funds available to take the project down, ship it away, and restore it. So there has been a decommissioning proposal made in the package. When you look at it, if you have any questions as to the terms of it, we can talk about those, but that's the purpose. So the town won't get stuck, having to clear that on its own, although the town could choose. It's really the town's choice. If 20 years from now, they say, thank you very much for the money, but that's down in 0 South Pease Road, and we're going to let it sit for a while. Yeah, that's your choice. I can just take a quick look here.
Mr. Maynard?
Through the chair, if I might comment, Mr. Martin mentioned that there was no comment or question with respect to the frontage requirement. I would note that Mr. Kingston suggested that the board be presented with a proposed covenant with respect to continued use of both parcels together by a common owner. And I'd be happy to work with Mr. Martin or Mr. Malone with respect to that proposed covenant.
Yes, I would assume that would be a condition that we would meet, and we're not going to record that until we have everything in place, so I can't give you something like that now, but it could be a proper condition. Sure. That's what I meant when saying it. That was proposed by Mr. Malone, so I'm assuming it's acceptable to him.
It was proposed by me and accepted by Mr. Malone.
So I think those are my comments on, the other was Eversource. We don't have anything in writing as of yet. They've been in contact with Eversource, who said, essentially, that's our main power line running through that town. We don't see anything changing in that. No, the land's not for sale. No, there's not anything you can do about it. We can ask them to give us something. I don't know if they will, but it was basically, okay, Mr. Obvious, take a look. We're not doing anything with that land. That is a transmission line that feeds a lot of...
But it was my impression that that property is zoned residential.
My understanding it is. My understanding it's zone residential all the way out to Pease Road, the farm, et cetera. They, on the other hand, have the federal regulations and their Department of Public Utilities and pretty much do what they want when it comes to the use of that land. But it is zoned.
So it would be wonderful if they gave us something that at least cited federal regulation that would not allow them to ever develop that as long as there's a utility line on that property.
I don't know if you heard me say that, I didn't mean to say that.
Okay.
They can take a piece of residential land without coming to you and do anything that's monitored under certain federal regulations. So that is residential property. They have erected those power transmission lines, have been there for a long time now. And their position, as I understand it from speaking to my clients, was, this isn't going anywhere. That we have no intention of that. And, we would never sell this property while we're using this transmission line. So if your question is, have they assured us that they're never going to do anything with the land? They have not. They've just stated what they say is the obvious. So I don't know what we can get or force them or ask them to do.
Well, the only thing we talked about was if it ever went away, which sounds like it never will, so it does sound like there's no risk for your client. But if it ever went away, then at that point in time, a buffer would be required because it'd be between the two.
And I heard your comment on that, and I think that's very reasonable. Yeah. Just in terms of getting it out of Eversource or whatever, I'm not sure.
It's probably easier to agree to the buffer than try to get Eversource to give you a letter.
Yeah, I would think so. A buffer if it ever stopped being used
Right.
as a transmission line parcel.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a continuation of a public hearing, so I'd like to open it to the public. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address this issue, please stand and give us your comments.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Marilyn Richards, 342 Pinehurst. For the record, I'm a member of Town Council, and I missed the previous public hearing, so I'm not sure if any of these issues are a concern. I know as a council, we still have a public hearing that's been continued and has not been decided yet with respect to a zone change request for this parcel. And I'm looking to our town attorney. Do we need to, I mean, should we have made decisions at that end before we're in this part?
I think Mr. Martin agreed to forestall that application pending the result of this proposal for, or request for site plan review.
And we know it's a matter of public record that we have a judgment regarding this particular operation against the judgment against the town. And please forgive me, what's confusing to me is, I understand there were some questions about our bylaw, parts of it, but not necessarily all of it.
That's why Mr. Maynard's here.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Go
then,
ahead.
sorry to
No,
interrupt,
no.
but just to, first of all, to correct you, there's not a judgment against the town. There was a ruling by the land court in the action filed by PLH LLC, the applicant here, against the town as to the validity of the zoning bylaws requirement that, or prohibition on ground-mounted solar installations in a residential zone. That aspect of the bylaw was invalidated by the court in an interim ruling. The suit is ongoing. We've agreed to an informal stay, again, while this process has gone forward. The court in that case did indicate that the planning board was able to consider this project with most of the other bylaws essentially in effect, other than a lot size requirement and the prohibition on ground-mounted solar in residential zone. So beyond that, it is by and large a review under the normal course.
So in reviewing this application on a residential parcel where the residential requirements essentially would kick in, lot coverage doesn't count.
Right.
Side yard, front yard, well, there's no front yard, there's no frontage. So how do we, or you, evaluate the impact of this request in a residential zone fairly with other residential properties? And that's, I mean, it's a struggle because there's a lot of unanswered questions at both ends. But I'm just not sure where you're going tonight. And so I wanted to at least raise the concern that it's a residential zone. And we have requirements for a residential zone. And are you, as a board, through the recommendation or the assistance with town council, permitted to deviate from those established standards for a residential zone?
Well, as I understand it, this planning board is applying setback requirements from the residential zone and any other requirements other than the minimum lot size, the maximum lot coverage requirement. Overlaid on residential zone requirements are specific requirements with respect to ground-mounted photovoltaic installations, one of which Mr. Kingston has cited too. There are provisions with respect to such installations which this planning board is applying in its review of the site plan proposal.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
So are there any other comments from the audience? So I'll take it back. So I think we've kind of come to a general agreement on what are the remaining questions.
I do have one additional, just if I may. Sure. There has been a series of emails back and forth between Mr. Breuer and yourself in terms of filing and, the documents and time. I just want to learn tonight if there's anything that is not filed that needs to be filed.
So, through the chair, That filing you're speaking of is in regard to the Conservation Commission. The planning board does not entertain the application that is before the Conservation Commission because they're looking at the farm pond that's located on the site. That application is complete. The planning board waits for the response and the comment from the Conservation Commission on that matter.
Yeah, so thank you. So the Conservation Commission application and documentation is complete for their, as required?
As I understand, today the materials arrived and we assisted your client by bringing the materials to the town clerk because nobody was present to
Yeah, he had hoped to be
deliver
here
them.
today, but he
Well,
couldn't.
the town hall would have been closed at
Yeah.
6 p.m. So generally, we do not do that. So we've actually gone above and beyond to assist your client with processing the application before the Conservation Commission.
And with respect to the planning board, have you received everything that you have requested in connection with this application?
Unless the planning board has other information that they're requesting this evening, if their questions aren't answered to their satisfaction, I can't speak for them in regard to that matter.
The only thing I would like to see is the wording on this covenant that we're talking about. I know it can't be recorded until we approve the site plan, but I think that should be part of the approval process that we see it, okay?
I believe we were intending to work with town council
Right.
on that and agree on language on that, which he can share with you.
Sure.
And, certainly be available when we meet again.
So, Mr. Maynard, so was there another status conference with the land court since we last met?
There was a status report filed, which was short and pithy, which simply said that the matter, the public hearing was continued to this date, and we'll make a subsequent further status report to the court indicating that, questions have been raised and answers promised, and the public hearing, as I understand it, will be continued to a date. I'm yet to hear from you.
And there's been no response from the court from that?
No, nor would I expect it.
It was just a filing.
Okay.
I would comment that we should see the Conservation Commission's ruling before we approve the site plan, because if we approve a site plan and then they rule differently, you've got to amend the site plan, and we're into this all over again.
Well, that would be at our risk if we did that, but certainly, I think it's within your purview to approve it contingent upon approval by the Conservation Commission of the plan that you have approved. That is certainly an acceptable practice. And while we're on that topic, the DPW's comments, you've got them. Is anyone of this board looking, we'll deal with the Conservation Commission, I understand, but from this board, is there anything that anyone has that needs to be addressed by the applicant? Because as Mr. Denver properly pointed out, we'd like to have everything in and make sure that we're clear, so right now I'm hearing that you have everything that is required.
Your questions?
Other than the questions that you'd like answered.
And
if
the draft of the covenant.
Yes, so what I'd like to suggest is that we will get those to Ms. Browders well before the hearing, so that she can
Sure.
circulate to you, and if you have any questions, you can give them back to her or get them to Attorney Maynard, so that we can,
I would anticipate that we would vote at the next hearing night.
thank you very much.
Yep.
The Chair, if I may,
Sure.
the Conservation Commission meets on January 8th.
Okay.
Planning Board meets on the 7th.
Okay, so we meet then, after that, we then meet when?
We don't meet later in
21st.
January?
I'm sorry.
21st.
21st.
Okay. So do I have a motion to continue the public hearing until January 21st?
So moved.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion made and second, continue the public hearing until January 21st. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay.
2020.
2020, yes. Yep.
1/21/2020.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Clerk?
Okay. New public hearing, case SP 2019-13, commercial dog kennel. Request by applicant for an amendment to SP 2003-11 for commercial dog kennel at a doggy daycare to allow for overnight accommodations at 15 Baldwin Street, Assessors Parcel ID 27-13-13, and a 5,887 plus or minus square foot existing structure on .51 plus or minus acre site located in industrial zoning district. The applicant is a dog shop, 15 Baldwin Street, East Long Meadow, Mass.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
good, how are you?
Thanks for coming out
It's been
on,
a long time before the board.
Hi.
have we
We've been-
changed?
No, yes, you have.
I wasn't here.
We've
so-
been in that building now for 20 years, so
Okay.
business in good standing,
Good.
yes.
So tell us about your proposal.
We're primarily a grooming shop, and we have a doggy daycare, and we have had a large request from our clients to accommodate their dogs overnight, and that's what we were hoping to do. The times have changed, you know, in this industry, and we need to keep up with it in order to, you know, keep up with the times. We would primarily just do our clients' dogs in.
So how many dogs are you capable of having as overnight guests?
Yes, I was thinking between the 10 and 15 range would be a comfort zone for me.
Okay. And the location, what's the closest residential property?
There's one little tiny house on the corner, right near the Dunkin',
top of the
at the
street.
top of the street.
Yeah, okay.
And those people have been there, and we've had no complaints on us anywhere throughout the town, whether it be the town, the animal control, Better Business Bureau, or anything.
Okay.
And I've been actually in town for about 25 years. I had another little location under the bridge a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yes.
Okay. So, are there questions on the board?
I have a comment.
Okay.
This is not an allowed use under our bylaw, and we would have to change the bylaw in order to allow you to do this.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't see how we can approve this because, it's explicitly listed as not an allowed use. There's only one kennel in town right now.
Yes.
And that is pre-existing non-conforming.
Yes.
And he has been advised that he cannot expand, okay, or tear everything down and build new, because he's pre-existing non-conforming. So, in my opinion, it's not in the capability of this board to approve this. And I know that you've been advised that if we turn you down, you should go to the ZBA. The ZBA is not allowed to give variances based on use. So it's up to you. You can go to them, but I don't think that they're going to be able to give a variance on this because it's a use variance. And under state law and our bylaw, neither of those are allowed. So I'm afraid
Yeah,
it's out of our hands.
That's an old
Yeah.
thing because of Porter Road and being there and then all the houses coming around it
Yeah.
and the complaints inside, but this industry has changed.
Well, the only way to do this would be to change the bylaw. Okay.
I had to request that when I did the daycare. I had to do that. That's how come the daycare is now allowed within the town. I
Yeah.
already went before the board and requested change.
Well, this would, again, it would have to come to the board to draft a bylaw change, and then it would have to go to town council, okay, to get it through. That would be the proper procedure, okay. I understand, having talked with the owner of, I know the owner of Porter Road Pet Care, okay, full disclosure. I used to work with him at Monsanto, but I know that technology has changed,
Yeah.
okay? You don't have open pens anymore,
Yeah.
you can soundproof the building, all that kind of thing. If it's that important to you, then I would suggest that you petition this board to change the bylaw, and we would take a look at it and see if, perhaps with your input on the kind of, I want to call them restrictions, but guidelines that we would have to put in place about soundproofing and hygiene and all those kinds of things. I'm not an expert at all on dogs, I don't have. But I know because I live on Rural Lane, that they're noisy, because Porter Road is one block over.
Yeah.
Okay?
And
So,
we've had no noise complaints.
I understand that. I'm trying to think about a path forward here.
Yeah.
Okay? Rather than
I'm
just
following
say,
you.
go away and don't bother
Understand.
us.
Yeah.
But that would be the proper way for them to petition us for a bylaw change, and then to work on something that would not have any impact on neighbors because it's done the proper way today, not just open pens outside.
And it can be a fairly quick process
Mm-hmm.
to turn around. I would envision that if we could get this on our next public hearing, which is, you heard, January 21, it would come here and then go to town council in February, and there's conceivably an opportunity for you to be up and running with this sometime in March.
Yes, I would like to pursue it,
Okay.
yes.
So as far as the procedure, could I ask that you make an appointment to see Connie at Town Hall? And just she'll kind of give you the process for all of that? And then we can take it up at the next time that's brought before us.
Okay.
So, at least that's probably, as George said, it's probably the cleanest, most efficient way to kind of make
Yeah,
this happen.
I understood
and-
this was gonna
And be legal.
be a glitch,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we had to start somewhere.
Sure,
just
absolutely,
Like I did with
sure.
the daycare, and
Yeah. And if you could bring to Connie the proposed requirements for such a facility in terms of square feet per animal, noise suppression, hygiene, whatever it is. I'm sure you're dealing with hygiene right now. But, whatever it is, so we can write that into the bylaw, so that it just doesn't say dog kennel is allowed.
Yes.
That it is allowed if it meets certain requirements, okay, certain specifications or whatever you want to call them. Okay?
Okay.
That'll help us greatly, because we don't know what those are.
and my type of kenneling is a service this town is craving.
Sure, I
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the right way to
Yeah.
go forward with this,
Okay.
so that we can do it appropriately.
Yep, thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Good,
I was just looking for my card, I'm sorry. I can't find my cards. You know how to.
yeah.
I know how to get in touch with
Okay.
you.
So
I'll call you for an appointment.
So what procedural action should we take on this item?
May I recommend that you deny the request?
Okay.
For special permit?
Okay.
Or ask them to withdraw without prejudice?
That's probably a better way, I
Okay.
think, withdrawing without prejudice.
Okay.
Fine.
So do I have a motion?
Motion to allow them to withdraw without prejudice, to accept their withdrawal without prejudice.
So a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, say nays. Okay, great.
Good.
Okay.
There's the process.
We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Case SD-P 2019-1, Shelby and Silver Fox Lanes. Request by applicant for preliminary subdivision approval for two-lot subdivision on 3.81 plus or minus acres located at Shelby Lane and 14 Silver Fox Lane, assesses parcel ID 65-16-5 in a residential A zoning district. The applicant is Gillespie Koopa and Vanessa Koopa, 14 Silver Fox Lane, Silver Fox, East Long Meadow, Mass.
It's Giuseppe.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I have dyslexia, so I see things a little differently.
My name is Carmen Capo, I'm Giuseppe
Yep.
father. Basically, what we asking, that we have a 4-lot parcel, and we'd like to divide it to 2-lot subdivision. And the purpose of it is that myself and my wife would like to move close to my son. But that's basically the purpose of subdividing it.
So can you do me a favor? So
Certainly.
can you pull that up?
Yeah,
Maybe someone could hold it, and maybe you could just
okay.
kind of, for us, but also for the people in the audience and for the TV, people can see as you kind of walk through what you're interested in
Right
doing?
now, this particular house right here was originally known as 18 Shelby Lane. Once we did the Silver Fox subdivision, we changed the address of this particular house to 14 Silver Fox. So all the utilities, all the opening, the curb cutting is already still there. So now we come down Shelby Lane, this is the entrance that was used originally to service this house. Now there's a driveway here, which is serving this house, and we basically like to extend the road and create a frontage here and build a ranch right here.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, I'd like to see a plan actually drawn. I mean, what you're doing, you're taking an old plan, just kind of pointing, this will be here, this
Well,
will
no,
be
this is the
there.
actual plan that the survey drawing where the house is going.
But then explain it again, because you lost me.
Okay. What we're proposing right now, this was a 4-acre parcel, this whole parcel.
Right.
What we're proposing is to subdivide this 4-acre parcel into two. Extended the road because we need a legal frontage. Extended the road, and then make this as the legal frontage so that we could build a house over here. So what Paul Smith did, he actually took the parcel, subdivided it, create a new frontage, and separate the two lots. So this is the actual plan that was presented.
Okay.
Go ahead, George.
My concern is with the road extension, okay? You've got a very narrow opening onto the cul-de-sac.
We have a 32 feet at the opening at the beginning.
Okay.
And we have 86 feet. But the board needs to at least know that this road, this opening was originally serviced in the house already.
Right.
So we're basically not changing anything, and when you look at the pavement, the asphalt pavement, right now it's approximately 26 feet. We have plenty of space to do a 26 feet entrance. Further, if the board feels they will want another exit for emergency purpose, and emergency purpose only, we can connect this driveway with this driveway for that purpose, for the emergency exit.
No, I'm not concerned about that, because Shelby Lane is relatively short. To get frontage, it's got to be frontage on a public way, which means that the town has got to accept the road extension you've got there. And I'm wondering whether that's going to meet DPW standards, okay? Or whether they're going to want a 30-foot road. Do we have comments from DPW on this at all?
Right now, the asphalt road, I believe it's acceptable to Public Works.
Yeah.
It's 26 feet.
26 feet, okay.
That's what we did, when we just did Shelby Lane.
Yeah, it's 26, okay.
They allow us to do with 26 feet.
Okay.
So we do have,
You have 30 there.
we have 32.
32, okay.
Well, so this is a comment from the Public Works. They're saying that the road extension does not meet the width requirements of a public way in the subdivision rules and regulations. Preliminary plan submission is incomplete according to the subdivision rules and regulations. Now, what they mean specifically by that, Connie, do you have any additional information from?
I do. So what was presented was one plan. There are no plan sheets that are shown, separate plan sheets. We really needed to see an existing condition plan at the minimum and a proposed condition plan, as well as other information. This is preliminary, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so if you look at the preliminary subdivision, the subdivision regulations and follow the requirements under the preliminary subdivisions, this falls short of those requirements. So it's an incomplete submittal.
And the petitioner's aware of the Public Works comments on that?
You did get a copy?
I did not.
Okay, so I apologize. I think we had the snow day, and I think Bethany maybe
Got
was...
backed up. Yep.
Yeah, so we will make sure that you get a copy of the comments from DPW.
Well, I can give them just
Your
on this,
copy?
but if you want, I guess the question is, I would like to be able to give them a kind of a better description of what is incomplete.
So
Okay.
we have a plan review checklist.
Okay?
I would recommend that the applicant follow the plan review checklist, and if there are plan sheets that he does not feel are warranted, he can request a waiver
Okay.
so that the planning board can vote on that waiver. I would ask that and they are concise and they are very detailed, so there is no misunderstanding or misconception of what we require. It's all laid out for people. There's also a process checklist. I don't believe we have a written narrative. And if you're not going to do a stormwater report, you want to ask for a waiver from the stormwater report. Again, it's all in black and white.
If you remember, Connie, when we originally presented this was a preliminary, and we were hoping that we would have an informal meeting with Connie and some members of the board to do exactly what we're just doing now.
Oh, okay.
Is what do you like us to do?
Okay.
The only thing that, right now, that we could be non-conforming, and we did ask for a waiver, we just want to get an idea of from the board before we go ahead and get the actual, because at that point now, we got to go from the preliminary
To a final.
to a definitive plan and show everything on a plan, and that's totally okay. The only issue that we have, it's the 32 feet versus the 50, or the 60 feet that it's required. However, even on a 60-foot road, which we did on Silver Fox, the pavement is only 26 feet. So the rest of them is grass. So we do have the 26 feet, so what we would like to ask the board to waive the frontage requirement so that we can in turn extend the road and then create the legal frontage.
You waive the width requirement, the road width requirement.
At the
The
entrance.
frontage on the public way.
No,
You're talking about
he's creating the frontage. When he
Yeah,
wants us to waive-
but he's not creating enough frontage.
Well, we are
Yeah, right there.
here.
Yeah, but the public way is the cul-de-sac.
No,
Yeah, I understand.
He's creating a new public way.
We-
He's extending the cul-de-sac.
We were going to do originally a cul-de-sac, but Connie's recommended at least to do it this way, because she felt that the original plan that me and Connie went through actually showed another cul-de-sac. And we said this will look better than all the pavement for one house. And that's the reason why we did it this way.
But how does DPW, for example, make its turn with a snowplow?
Or with a fire truck.
Or a fire truck?
Yeah.
I mean, which is what they always are talking
Ask,
about,
yeah.
asking for.
Well, first of all,
Which means that's not public anymore.
But this is public.
But
So they would seek to get an extension, they would seek to get a public way extended so that they could create a
Frontage.
frontage.
Yeah.
But when you do that, there are obligations that you need to meet with respect to turning radius for like the plows, for the fire trucks to get in and out, just among two things that pop up right to my mind. So it's not just extending the roadway. So there are those issues to be considered, which Connie can share with you exactly. Because we do seek comments from, the fire department and the police department about access for their vehicles. Because during a public emergency, you want the public safety vehicles to be able to access all of that.
But, Mr. Chairman, that's one of the other reasons why we're saying that if it's an option that
Well, yeah.
we would,
That's,
via D restriction,
yep.
in the D, we would create, there's a driveway here right now that services this house.
Mhm.
And actually, this
Do you
point-
own that home?
Yes. Actually, and we did it two ways, but we only proposed it that way because we were open for comments from you. This will basically show where the connection would be. The only difference is this will be 60 feet, obviously it would be, 30 feet, 28 feet.
Yeah.
But this will be continued.
Okay.
And if the board say, no, we will not, the reason, again, we did it this way, because that makes makes more sense.
Yeah.
It looks better, it feels better all the way around. The other option that we have, which we can come here on 60 feet legally, but then we can, we have to do all this paving, and talking to,
Doesn't look as nice for your neighbors.
right, talk to the people that, live there, I did the whole Silver Fox. So, speaking with the people there, everybody felt that this is the better way of doing it versus the other way.
So I, for one, rely a lot upon our advisors in the town, so police and fire and DPW. So I think it would be something you'd want to share with them and get their comments and feel what they believe is the best. I think others feel the same way, that we look to, the experts in the town for those type of things. So I guess what I'd like to do now is, because this is a public hearing, and it'll give you a chance to also listen to other people who might be in the audience that might have concerns.
Sure.
And then that way you can take that into consideration with, if you, redo plans and that type of thing, which you're gonna need to do, so.
If I may ask?
Sure.
Through the chair, there have been backlot subdivisions in the town where you have 20 feet right-of-way, and then you have a site development in the back. Like a pork chop lot, some people call it a dog lot, where you have a narrow access. Would it be possible for Mr. Capua to do a backlot subdivision here? For instance, on Chestnut Street, there is a backlot subdivision heading toward Benton Drive. And they have a long driveway that's probably 200 feet long.
Yeah, there's one on Maple Shade as well,
So there are several.
right as you go around the curve.
Yeah, and frankly, the building commissioner and I were trying to figure out how this happened, since anything that's stated in the bylaw as being permissible by right isn't
I
allowed.
think we had developed something like that a few years ago, our family on Chestnut Street there, so.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Okay.
So would that be?
Consideration? Yep.
But how does this happen in East Long Meadow?
I look to you, George, you've been on the board the longest.
I don't know, quite frankly. I don't like pork chop lots, okay? And generally, from a planning viewpoint, they're not considered desirable, okay? And the state has ruled on some of this, and particularly when it comes to A&Rs, okay? That pork chop lots don't really qualify for A&Rs. This is not an A&R, this is a subdivision, but it's not desirable, in my opinion, unless there's, extreme hardship involved. I mean, I like the idea of extending the street one way or the other, provided that it meets the public safety requirements and DPW requirements, because otherwise they're gonna end up, if you use the other one, they're gonna end up plowing and leaving a big pile of snow at the end of it.
And that's the reasons why we wanted your comments, because, we want to do it the right way. We want to do it the way where the board feels happy, and so all the, the people living both on Shelby Lane and on Silver Fox.
So let's hear from them. So I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address this project? Please step up.
Hi.
Hi.
Cindy Normandin, I actually live at 540 Summers Road, so we're the big cornfield behind the Silver Fox. So the only comments I have is if you're gonna extend Shelby Lane, I'm just concerned about water again. Kind of the same situation that Silver Fox Lane had, and it's been fine. That one's been fine, but I would like the same thing to be considered if you're gonna do the Shelby Lane extension.
One of the things we would do, we would work with Paul Smith on creating, a stormwater management, and with the board that they're happy with, and we would definitely would take care like we did
Yeah,
in Shelby Lane.
it's wet
Like a
there.
Silver Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Paul Matern. I live at 4 Shelby Lane, and My only question and comment, first I'd just like to say, we're happy to have Mr. Capel as a neighbor now, so this isn't about neighbor issues. It's really, I think to Mr. Kingston's point, all the lots, even the new lots that you built, have, pretty standard looking lots. And also, we enjoy the open space in the neighborhood, and this I think would eliminate just about any of the open space that's left and create some odd shaped lots. So that's our concerns.
Okay.
We're at the other end of the street, so frankly, it doesn't really impact us that dramatically, but that's just our comment from the street.
If I may, can I respond?
Sure.
We basically, it's a little over an acre lot, and we plan to clear it less than half. So we will still maintain all the,
Sure.
we'll preserve a lot of the integrity of the lot.
Sure. Just to Mr. Kingston's point, though, I think, once the final plans come forward, it'd be interesting to see, to make sure that, plows and fire trucks can turn.
Yep.
And I know that tends to eat up acreage, and hopefully the integrity of the lots and the structure of the lots maintains.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to talk about this project?
How you doing? I'm Norm Bernadakis. I'm 17 Shelby, so I directly abut the new property. So I have no concerns with it. The only thing that I would say is the water that goes back there is pretty substantial. When they built our house, they raised the foundation probably about 3-4 feet, and we have some pumps going and stuff too. So I think they've done a great job in our neighborhood upgrading what they did on Silver Lake. So I think, it's just more of the water issue that I'd be concerned with, that's all.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to address the board on this issue? Yes?
Do I have to come up?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
Kristen Brooks.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
I can hear her.
Okay.
I just had a quick question, because,
Name?
Kristen Return,
Yeah.
also for Shelby Lane.
Thank you.
When Rick Punderson did Shelby Lane, he had told us he was required to leave so much open space, which is why there was extra land left. And now some of it has been developed for a house on Silver Fox, so I'm just wondering if the current plan meets those open space regulations, or if they've changed.
It's a good question, and we will check that.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Bill Johnson, 35 Fraser Drive. I was just wondering, can we at some point take a look at this? At some point, take a look at that plan?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And so, so there's a lot of questions, a lot of things that still need to be kind of worked out. So I guess what I would recommend is that we take a vote to continue the public hearing. We will continue it to January 21st. And we will do our very best to let people know whether all the materials have been submitted in advance, so that we would actually have some substance to speak about. So if you might, tomorrow you might want to, sometime this week, call the planning department and at least give them your email address and let them know what item you want to be notified on, so that in case we do continue it again, you don't have to kind of traipse back down to this meeting, and if it's not going to be heard. But that gives the petitioner some time to meet with police and fire, DPW, Connie, and just kind of get it right before you come back before the board. So we have a motion to continue to January 21st.
So moved.
I'll second that.
So motion made and seconded, continue the public hearing till January 21st. Take a vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say nay. So, all set.
I do have a letter from some of the other butters.
Okay, you want to just give that to Connie? Yeah.
All the people
Thank
from
you.
Silver Fox.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Who's the gentleman who wanted to see the plan?
I go outside.
Let's go look at that one. Yeah. Please go.
Case SDD 2019-04, modification of definitive subdivision plan for Hidden Ponds Estates. Request by applicant for release of lots from covenant and substitution of surety by irrevocable, I always struggle with that word, irrevocable letter of credit, applicant L. Joyce, Rosebud Builders LLC, P.O. Box 79, East Long Meadow, Mass.
Mr. Joyce here? Okay. Next item?
Discussion of appointing alternative commissioner to PVPC.
Alternate, yeah.
Alternate.
We need an alternate.
Well, I thought one of the pluses of becoming chair was I didn't have to have an alternative committee assignment.
Let me give you some background here. The alternate, first of all, there are only 5 general meetings a year, okay? There's the annual meeting and then 4 quarterly meetings. Typically, the representative, the commissioner, which is me, goes to those meetings, okay? And if you're an alternate and I can't go, you're not required to go. They're totally optional, okay? But if you're the alternate, you're allowed to go, and you can learn a lot of good things from them.
Is it time for questions?
Sure.
When might these meetings be? How long do they last? And what's required of the alternate if he does decide to attend?
Okay, the meetings typically start, they typically serve a light dinner around 5, and the meeting starts at 5:30. Okay.
Must be pretty late dinner.
It is. It's usually sandwiches from Frigo.
Eat quick.
Sandwiches from Frigo.
All right, go ahead.
Actually, it starts at 5:45 and the meeting starts at 5:30.
Okay. Yep.
The meetings are currently held alternately in downtown Springfield at PVPC and in Hadley at the Hadley Barn, okay, which is convenient on 91, and they alternate. And then the annual meeting is held at some place of special significance that changes every year. Okay, we've had a redeveloped mill in East Hampton, at various places in Northampton and Springfield area, okay, that they want to highlight as.
So that's for the purpose of having a meeting and seeing what's going on at the same time?
Exactly.
Okay. Hands-on.
Right. And usually what happens is there's very little bit of business that's carried out, and then there's 1 or 2 longer presentations where the staff or invited people from the state will come in and talk about current planning issues, okay? At our last one, we learned about the new model subdivision regulations and also about the census, okay, and what they're doing to count everybody. So the meeting starts at 5:30, goes for maybe an hour and a half, okay, and that's it. So, but as the alternate, you get invited, you're welcome to go. I get a free meal out of it. What it's worth.
Caught my attention.
Praise the Lord.
You'd be surprised what attracts people to come to meetings. But there is we do have to vote on things like the annual budget, and stuff like that. And you can learn a lot of interesting stuff by if you feel like going.
So as an alternate, you're probably anywhere from
once a year.
1 to 5 times a year.
Yeah, depending on whether you're interested in what's going on. And they're always held on Thursday. Okay, Thursday night.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Am I drafting you?
I nominate Ty Richards.
I knew, it was written all over my face, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, I nominate Ty to be the alternate representative to PVPC.
I will second that nomination.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Kate, thank you for waiting. Come on forward.
Request by Kate Delaney Chung, 117 Millbrook Drive, East Long Meadow, Mass. to discuss the standards and conditions of parking commercial vehicles in residential zone districts AA, A, B, C, and elderly residential. This is continued from October 15th.
Thank you. So, I guess the first thing I want to address, and I don't know if you're looking for a legal opinion from us or not about how, I guess your question is, while the town council may require you to vote on the matter, I'm specifically asking about whether or not there are any legal issues in this proposed amendment that would prevent it from being placed on the ballot. And we are not authorized to give you a legal opinion, but we have found out that the town council, before he left, indicated the most appropriate individual to see what can be placed on the ballot, how it can be placed on the ballot, is the town clerk. So that would be good. But I think we are also ready to, I think you were seeking some advice? Feedback, yeah, feedback is the best word, because you did make a couple tweaks to this and what we might think. Am I correct on that?
Pretty much.
Okay.
In terms of what can go on the ballot, from my understanding in the charter, there's a test. You have to get 50, if this goes to petition. You have to get 50 signatures, and then it goes to the town attorney, who decides whether or not it's legal. And then it goes to the 450 signatures. I'm trying to preempt that 50 signature legal test. That's what I was looking for. So the town clerk is the one that would know that?
Well, knows what and how things can be placed on a ballot.
Right.
So I believe, so you're just right, you just said, so that is one way. Now, George and I spent a year and a half on the Charter Commission. I believe there's actually 3 ways to actually get something on the ballot. One is a citizen's petition of a couple hundred, I believe, that bypasses the town council. The other way that I'm pretty much aware of is the town council takes a vote and the public disagrees with that vote and can vote to have that over, and can petition
That's the one I'm familiar
to kind of override their decision.
Right.
Is the other way. And help me.
Here you go.
Very good.
Yes, it's been very unclear what process I should follow.
Well, that's the state.
That's the state
This
process.
is the state statute, which we follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The town clerk is the chief election official, okay? And he's the one, he or she is the one that puts the ballot together. Okay, so that person is the expert on what can and cannot go on the ballot. Okay?
And in the form in which it goes on the ballot as well.
Now, I started this off with Mr. Florence, who told me to go ask the town council. So I asked the town council.
And they sent it to us.
They sent me to here.
Okay.
So Mrs. Hill wrote back that, yes, I can come again before the planning board, and I wrote back, said, what's the actual process? And I never got a response.
yeah.
So it's just a little unclear.
Yeah.
And the election is approaching, so.
But we're willing to give you feedback.
Yeah.
If you're still interested in.
Then I'll muddle through the mud.
Who would like to start?
I have a couple questions. There's lots of issues in this town. Why is this one particularly passionate to you?
Fight for the little guy, I guess. I don't know, there's no other answer. Even my husband's asked me that, so. It's just watching the public hearings, it just felt unjust. It was unfair to certain kinds of people. And yeah, I had some ideas, and here I am.
I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I understand what you're saying. It feels injustice to people that have these commercial vehicles. But then I have to look at both sides of the coin, because I look at the neighbor who lives next door to someone like this, who every day, looks at his front yard and goes, oh my gosh, I've got to look at that lettering, on the side of that car or truck or whatever every single day. Why do I have to look at a billboard all the time? I bought a house in a residential area, expecting zoning to protect me for these types of things that I'm looking at. So the issue becomes, there's obviously a group of people that have these kind of vehicles that really would like to have more leniency. But then there's another group of people that live next to those people that don't want to be looking at it every day. And they, have an opinion and rights too. So, that's something I...
Yeah. Regarding the lettering, under the amendment, it would be covered. So they wouldn't see the lettering.
Yeah, I read your 11-page summary and appreciate that. I was a little unclear about exactly about what was going to happen with the lettering. I know you talked about having it covered up and or hidden and things like that.
Yeah, it would be up to the owner to figure out how to do that. I suggested you could get a blank car magnet, kind of take it out of the box. So usually you put the lettering on the magnet and put it on the car. If the lettering's on the car, just get a blank magnet and put that on the car and cover it up when it's in the driveway. So that would be up to the driver or the owner of the vehicle. And again, if it's not covered, then it would be enforceable as a fine. I mean, they could enforce the bylaw.
Yeah.
And I know you have it limited to 1-ton vehicles and under would have more leniency than those over 1 ton. And I saw your description in there, how it's defined as quarter-ton,
Yeah.
half-ton, you know, and how things have changed. So that being the case, if the lettering, let's say the lettering's being covered up, what then is how would you describe the difference from what we're doing now to what you're proposing, since the lettering you just dealt with?
Well, right now, no vehicle, I could have a very small pickup truck with a commercial plate. I can't have that in my driveway. No lettering, nothing. That cannot, well, it's a vehicle that I use primarily for my business. I don't own a business, but if it was, that vehicle could not be in the driveway, just because it has a commercial plate. But there's no reason logically, I mean, other than the law says so. Help me if I'm getting it wrong, but it's the same vehicle. Mr. Mayberry, in one of the public hearings, gave a very good example. His son has a certain kind of truck, and Mr. Mayberry had the exact same kind of truck. One had residential plates, I guess, and the other had commercial. His truck was not allowed in the driveway, and they looked identical. That just doesn't make sense.
So I will just add that. So I walk out my back steps. I can actually see 6 driveways. And when I think of that, I think of Pete's Paints, Paul's Plumbers, Sam's Signs, you know, Ken's Carpentry, that type of thing. Where I live, there's actually a guy who, I see them popping up around town. They now have a storage trailer. No signage on it, but every morning people come in, they take tools out of the storage trailer, off they go, and then they come back at night and they put the stuff away. So they're operating a business really out of there kind of situation. And I guess my thought, just mine, is I bought a house in a residential district. I didn't buy a house in a business district. And the only, not a concern, but my feedback on the hiding of the lettering and so forth is essentially it would create a more difficult enforcement, because there are people who will do this. There will people who come home one day and they'll put the covering on it, and the next day they come home and they go, I'm not doing that. And then you call the building inspector out, and he comes out the next day and they put it back on, kind of thing, and it becomes a kind of a cat and mouse. Now, when the building inspector comes out, actually it's either screened or it's not screened. And I think there's more certainty to that than playing the cat and mouse game of kind of putting that on it. So.
Well, I mean, I'm not an enforcement officer, so I don't really know how it's done.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that the person complaining, all they would have to do is take a picture and send it in. I don't know if that's enough evidence, I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
And in terms of the trailer, the bylaw deals with vehicles, not trailers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yours does, yeah.
Yeah, the amendment.
Yeah.
I don't know what the actual full bylaw says about trailers, whether or not they're allowed or not. Yeah, so that doesn't.
George, do you have any?
Yeah, my only feedback is the ban on commercial vehicles in residential areas, except one that's garaged or screened, is very old. Okay, it's been around forever. The issue has been enforcement, and we had no definition of a commercial vehicle. Okay, the state simply says these are the vehicles that need to have commercial plates, but it doesn't really have a definition of what a commercial vehicle is. And that was leading to enforcement issues, because the building inspector did not feel that he had a clear enough definition to enforce. And so what we had proposed was a fairly simple definition that hopefully would be enforceable. So what we're talking about is not whether or not we allow commercial vehicles, it's how do you define what is a commercial vehicle. And I think my feeling on that is less is more. The the shorter the definition, the better off it is. As you get longer and longer, people find more and more ways to work around it. And so that's just where I'm coming from on this, but that's my feedback.
Yeah.
to you.
I read through the definition, and it's still, you know, if you're using your vehicle as primary commercial, it's not allowed. So 8 hours on the job, and then it's parked in your driveway, and you're not even using it. So does that, you know, it's still a commercial vehicle, so it shouldn't be in the driveway, because it's primarily commercial. And in terms of the complexity of laws, I mean, what are the laws coming out of Congress? They're thousands of pages long. If a law is unjust, it needs to be more complex.
Don't get me started on what comes out of Congress.
I know, but yeah, so if it's causing unjust harm, it needs to be more complex.
Jonathan, do you?
Yeah, so, well, first off, just to answer the question from earlier, I pulled up the charter, so there are 3 ways. Commencement, initiative procedure shall be started by the filing of the proposed initiative and petition to the town council, or if it's a school committee matter to the secretary of the school committee, and then referral to the town attorney, or then submission to town clerk. So those are sort of the 3 mechanisms.
What article in there? We got a pen.
Section 3, Article 8, Section 3, under citizen relief mechanisms.
And that's available on the town website.
Yeah,
Very
I read through it, but
easy access. Yeah.
Is that the town referendum? Because I've been looking at the town referendum.
Yeah, that's under the town, it's under citizen relief mechanisms.
It's under the charter. If
Under the
I-
charter.
So
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
go to the search box and
Yeah,
type in town charter, it's going to pop up. It's going to, and then you can find citizen relief.
Yeah, it's
Just
like
type in
page
citizen, it'll bring you
18 or
right to the
19.
I've been looking through the charter, and I've been reading the section, I think it's called town referendum. That's the one where you need 500 signatures.
That's right, yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's what I've
under
been
there,
going
too.
on, and I'm trying to get, am I reading this right? And they're you know, I haven't really gotten straight answers.
And the good
But,
thing is you're at a point still where we're very far out, you know, they need to get back to you within a matter of a couple, 30 or something days, but you're pretty clearly, the election's in June.
Ahead
so
of the
you're
game.
Pretty ahead of the game.
Yeah, all those snow days here and
Yeah.
meetings
That's true,
canceled
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I mean, I started this, I approached the town council last April, and I'm only here. I'm only at this point. So,
But I think it's a really good way to do it.
You weren't on there yet.
No, not my fault.
no, it was budget season. That was my fault. I started during budget season.
But I think this is a good procedure to, bring this straight to the voters and kind of have a conversation and have everybody kind of collectively decide it, because there are so many people that do have commercial vehicles in the community. And I'm sorry, you're...
I was just about to say, and hopefully put it to rest.
Yes, exactly.
Hopefully.
Exactly.
Great.
So, if I may.
Yes.
So when you read the definition for commercial vehicle, it says any vehicle currently registered as such with the State Registry of Motor Vehicles or equivalent out of state or federal agency, and is used primarily in the conduct of a business, pause, as evidenced by signage or other commercial enhancements to the vehicle, as opposed to private, family, or individual use. So that vehicle has to have signage, it has to have ladder racks, it has to have what do you call them, the toolboxes, something that if it doesn't have signage, if you see all of those other materials, Mr. and Mrs. Jones are probably not going to be driving around town with those types of enhancements to their truck.
I've gone to soccer games where the parents show up in their lettered vehicles.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones are happily married 44 years? Is that maybe what it's, I mean, so you know that Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if they want to write on their vehicle that they've been married 44 years, they're not selling their marriage of 44 years. See, there's a difference, and you have to be mindful of what is on that vehicle that says, I'm in this for business. I'm here as, this is something that I earn a living at. I mean, you could have the pink Cadillac for Mary Kay Cosmetics. And you knew Mary Kay was vending her cosmetics because she was going from party to party, or the rep was. So there's clearly an identification that says this is a vehicle for use versus Mr. and Mrs. Jones who are just driving around touting their 44-year marriage.
Well, wouldn't that fall under the no signs in the residential zone?
No, that's a sign. So that's another thing that you would be under violation for because you've got a rolling sign. So what your point is is you want to allow commercial vehicles to be parked in a residential area without being screened. We already allow them in a residential zoning district as long as they're screened, Kate, and as long as they're not. So you can have your your F-150 in your car, in your driveway, as an F-150, as your personal vehicle. But as soon as it becomes Mr. Mayberry's trucking service, or Mr. Mayberry's anything, then it becomes used for pecuniary interest. If there's a financial interest, you're conducting a business. And that's what the people that we've heard in town want to refrain from. They want to keep their residential districts residential without supplanting them by any type of business use.
I understand all that.
I know, yeah, I hope so,
I
because.
do, and I'm just saying that
Okay.
the vehicles are being multi-purpose these days. I don't know what it was like when the bylaw was written.
Right, but
Um,
it's like realtors putting their signs up, on the side of their
you know, I
cars
was
and
thi-
taking them off.
And I was thinking about it, a child with a Nike swoosh on their shirt, they can't stand in their own front yard. It's a sign.
Well, they're a person wearing an article of clothing,
Well,
it's a little different than a sign.
It's a sign.
It's
So-
an ad.
So thank you for coming in, I appreciate it.
All right, I don't know where I'm going from here, but
Well, I guess I would start with the town council, I mean, not town council, town clerk, because that's who the town attorney told us to refer you to, as far as the actual process of getting it. And then you might make the decision on which you believe would be the shorter or the less burdensome of the three way to do it. Marilyn?
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Kate mentioned the Mayberry example of
From
identical trucks, one with a commercial plate and one without. Now that we have our new definition, which includes enhancements which would identify that that truck is strictly being used for business, if it were just a truck with a commercial plate that met the weight requirement of under 1 ton rated capacity, how would the building inspector deal with that vehicle? With just a commercial plate, nothing else?
There would not be, he probably, I can't tell you what he would do, but I would suspect that he would not enforce against that vehicle.
Correct.
Okay?
Because there's no identification
Right, of the
language on it yet.
so I think I got that part a little wrong, but it's still.
Because John did come in here
Right.
last
Poor Mr.
year.
Mayberry, I don't want to keep forgetting.
No, he did come in here last year and make that distinction. I've got a over 1 ton vehicle with no lettering on it, and you're telling me I can't have it. And we go, well, that's what we fixed.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know, so to allow that.
Okay, then it was a bad example.
Yeah. That's okay.
But like the parents that show up in their family vehicles with their business advertised at the soccer game, and then they go home and try to park them.
Company or something like
Sorry?
that. Like a landscaping company
Yeah,
or something like
there's
that.
a lot of landscapers out there.
Good. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. Zoning reform legislation. George?
That has been put on the back burner.
Okay.
Because it's not going to clear the legislature this session, and PVPC, our new executive director, has decided that we don't need to take a position on it.
Okay.
So I will keep you informed if anything develops, but at the present time, she's not asking for a vote to support it. Again, it's still in committee, so we don't really know what it's going to look like, okay? You know that. Until it hits the floor, nobody knows what the wording's going to be.
It's like making sausage.
And in response to my new position, if Jordan is not available, I'll have to inform you. You better make sure you're available.
You got it.
I asked Connie to put number 12 on the agenda. So it's update of the master plan. So I feel, and this is my opinion, and I've expressed it to a number of people. So Connie had come up with a very ambitious goal to develop a master plan to submit to the town council June, July of 2020. I don't believe that this planning board, and with all apologies to the member of the master plan committee, that we are in a position at this time to be able to produce a master plan that we would all be proud of developing between now and June. And the reasons I say that are, we probably will see back from the town council a mixed use zoning, whatever, to,
Mixed-use village district.
thank you, to kind of vet out again. And as we know, the last 2 times we've had that, it has taken a lot of our time. We are also right smack dab in the middle of the sustainability plan that is a state grant, which needs to be concluded by June of 2020. I would anticipate, solely based upon them holding a public gathering to hear people's concerns, that there will be a submittal of a project for the Pride Station at the Rotary, which I have to envision will take a lot of our time and a lot of the staff's time to kind of vet that out. So I guess what I'm asking is that at this time, we put the development of a master plan off until we kind of get our sea legs under us. And I think it might be more appropriate for our board and for the planning department staff, but I wanted to get a consensus or not from this board before we did that.
Definitely my recommendation.
I'll buy into it.
I feel that would be
Okay.
an appropriate
Good.
measure.
So I guess, but I don't want to lose it.
No.
So I would like it, obviously, to let the members of the master plan committee know of our decision. I would, however, would like to, when the sustainability master plan is completed, which I believe has to be done by June 30, that we then convene the group again and kind of lay out the time frame to do that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So with that, what's,
Before we go on, I
Yep.
thought Connie had a question about the master plan she wanted to bring up.
So one possible,
is to
one
seek
idea
funding.
that I had was to seek funding through my capital planning expenditure. I've done some preliminary work. I would like to do more legwork, but I would like, with the planning board's permission, to seek funding for a master plan, to submit a request for proposal for master plan design and development. I think most communities with departments as small as ours, which means two people staffing 3 boards, 5 meetings a month, there's not a lot of time to do any of the long range or any of the extras. We really have to be very selective about what we pursue. And our chair just mentioned several very high priority, and there is another high priority project that's going to be forthcoming next month. So I encourage people to stay tuned for the January 21st hearing, because I think it will be an exciting proposal that I've actually been working on since I've been here. So, anticipated, based on my conversations with my colleagues, the anticipated or expected cost or expected expenditure for a master plan study is $85,000 to $120,000, which is a lofty sum of money. And generally, it takes 2 years for a consultant to work full-time and put the master plan study together. I have looked at other sources. I've looked at a couple of the universities. I'm unfortunately not an alum of any of the local universities. It might be easier if I could reach out to one of the universities in the area and say, hey, how about a senior project, or how about a project for one of your classes?
We don't live close to Oswego.
What?
We don't live close to Oswego.
No.
I know, and so Arizona
Who
State.
went to Oswego?
I'm coming
No.
this way, you know.
You did?
No, Clarkson.
Oh.
Richard.
Clarkson.
Clarkson, he's up by
Yeah.
Oswego, but
Okay.
he was in Clarkson.
So, sometimes you can get some support from your former professors.
Okay.
So it's not that we haven't tried creative ways. And also, I did attend a community engagement workshop a couple of weeks ago. And we have our meetings and we have our delightful audience, but we really don't have the attendance by interested parties because people many times don't care to come out in the evening. They're busy doing other things. So my big takeaway from the community engagement workshop was that we have to go to the people, and we also have to create ambassadors who are involved with other community organizations like the Garden Club, George. Somebody on the Garden Club that you're active with might want to develop create a dialogue with other members and see if, maybe they're not interested in a piece of that master plan that interests them. But getting all of these moving parts together with our limited staff can be a challenge. And you all are dedicated volunteers that come again and again to the meetings. So we are trying to reach others who maybe haven't been involved before, maybe a little shy, don't quite know how to do things, and bring them to the table.
Thank you. So, would we want to make our recommendation that Connie, at a minimum, apply for this money through the capital planning process?
Yes.
I'll make a
I'd
motion.
like to make that motion.
I have a second. I'll second that.
George is speaking over there.
You're talking about a cruiser or 2 pickup trucks. Okay. Doesn't hurt to ask, but I have no expectation that we're going to get capital money to do this.
Well, there are 3 former planning board members on the town council, and I think there's at least 1 or 2 former members of the Charter Commission. And during the Charter Commission discussions, there was a proposal that a master plan be developed. And so I would be happy to point out the necessity of that through the charter, number 1. And I would think that the 3 former members of the planning board would see through their years on the planning board the necessity to make a master plan that could potentially be followed by future planning boards, future town councils, as to what they want the town to look like in 20 years. Because they are the fathers and mothers of the community, and the decisions they make today will have an impact 20 years down the road.
I think if our plan wasn't as old as it is, again, and we could have piecemealed it together through the years, because that's what many communities do, is they'll get that foundation done, and then every 5 years, they pick up
Update.
another piece. So it's continually.
So I'll make, so there's a motion made, it's been seconded, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay. So the last thing is our update on the multi-use village district. So do you want to give it?
Oh my gosh.
So where are we in the process?
We've gone through, you want me to go up here?
You can sit.
Oh, I can sit.
You don't have to stand.
Thank you.
At each meeting, we get an update on this.
I wasn't prepared to do this, but we just had a meeting Monday, and we have gone through the document twice, and what's fascinating is the more we go through it, the more issues come up where we try to fine-tune the language. This is a huge leap of faith as far as our community, and so we take it all very seriously, and actually, we're ready. I'm ready to wrap it up.
Okay. Which means?
Which means we, right now, we're dealing with the table of uses. We are also looking at ways to create a hybrid formula for the heights of the buildings. Because while the bylaw may fit with the developer that was at this table, it may not fit with Pease Road or Lee Street or South Bend or some other part of our town that's nestled in the middle of a residential district. So I volunteered to do that. In fact, I was working on it just this afternoon, trying to come up with some kind of language that the creation of the district location would reflect the previous zoning or the zoning that it's being, you know, it's being developed, you know, next to or within. I'm really hopeful that we will be getting to a public hearing, you know, soon after the first of the year. Because it came to us, because it went to the subcommittee will then create the document, and that's gonna be tricky because I'm doing the computer work. And you don't pay me enough to do that. And trying to get my computer to cooperate so that the document will be official enough to go to the council for two readings, you know, the two public hearings, and then hopefully have some real input from the community. We feel that one piece has been a little bit weak. You know, we don't have a lot of people here.
Right.
And I say this at council meetings, we don't have a lot of people at council meetings either. And it's important to get this information out however we can.
We need to do coffees.
Yeah.
That was one thing. We need to, if Shelburne Falls Coffee,
You know,
Starbucks.
if you offer food, everybody would come.
That's true.
Yeah, and
Well,
that's
thank
what-
you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what George used to try to get me to be the alternate.
No, but these have been very productive meetings. I had the opportunity to go to the
It's-
last two because of schedule changes, so
I appreciate you saying
Marilyn and
that.
Connor have both, and the other board
Right,
members have been
right.
very diligent.
Good.
And there have been good thoughtful discussions.
Great. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Do you have a director's report?
We've talked.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.